I want to share one more principle with you, one more tool in my toolkit, and this one touches close to home. This tool is having a mindset of grow where you're planted. Grow where you're planted. I learned this through a very difficult time in my life. My wife and I, we got married rather late in life for us, and we got pregnant with our first child, and I couldn't wait to be a dad. Man, was I excited. I could envision the whole thing. But then something got screwed up in the pregnancy. And by the way, if any of you guys have a daughter, granddaughter, somebody who might be pregnant, don't worry, because what I'm about to share is very, very rare, but it hit us. The baby was born premature and only weighed about 4 pounds. And that wasn't too bad, but it turned out his heart was all screwed up. Heart was a total mess. Arteries in the wrong place, holes all over the place. And about 2 or 3 days into his little life, he was about gone. And they transferred him to a teaching hospital, and I went up there, but they wouldn't let my wife come because she had some complications, not life-threatening, so she had to stay in the hospital. So I find myself, guys, sitting in a waiting room, waiting for the doctors to come tell me that my firstborn child is dead. And I am just doing what I call in my language, picking up chairs, these burdens that I put on my back. If only this hadn't happened, and what if he dies? And all these pressures I started putting on myself, and I was beginning to freak out, and you could understand why. But sitting there in that waiting room, all of a sudden it dawned on me. Exactly what I've been sharing with you today. You can't always control what happens, but you always get to choose your response. And I realized at that moment, my response is to sit here and feel sorry for myself while my little guy is down the hall fighting for his life. What are you doing, man? Get up and go down and send your kid love. Because love is one of my fundamental values, and that's another thing you can use to help you get through change. Focus in on what matters most to you right here, right now. And all the other stuff becomes noise. Well, when I did that in that waiting room, I said, hey, what matters to me right here, right now is I have a son. I've never had a son before, and I'm going to go send him all the love I can. Now, the little voice in the back of my head said, but he's going to die in like 5 minutes. I said to that voice, shut up. If he's going to die in 5 minutes, I better hurry up. And I went down to that nurse's station, and I was now in the moment because I'm focused on my values. I'm focused on something that change can't touch. And that's my values, that's my love, that's my heart. And I gave all of that to my little boy. My sense of humor even came back. See, when you get into the mode of being in the moment, all this change that seems so horrible, it's still horrible, but it doesn't control you. You control you. So for example, I'm sitting there and I couldn't go in, and all these doctors are working on them, but they would come out and give me updates. One time they came out and they said, good news. I said, oh, great, what? And they said, your son has a brain. They looked very proud of themselves. They said, what do you mean he has a brain? They said, well, sometimes when kids are born this ill, we run a CAT scan and they don't really have a brain, just a brain stem, but your kid has a complete brain. I go, wow, woo, he's one step ahead of his old man. Would you please go in there and try to help my kid? Guys, it was hell. It was awful. But I could choose my response. And in that moment, with God's help, I chose love. And I let go of the stuff I couldn't control. Whether he lived or died, I pray. I don't know what your faith is. Everybody has a different faith. My faith is I prayed to God and said, God, I don't know if he's going to live or die. My vote is let him live. And if you let him live, I'll love him with all my heart and soul for as long as you let him. You have him. And then I let go. I couldn't control whether he lived or died, but I could control how I loved my son. So to summarize, folks, I've been talking with you about change today. And let's review a little bit about what we've covered. We've covered that change is hard because it's hard. So if you've been struggling through this change, or some of the other people you know have been struggling, that's normal, that's okay. Change can be frightening, and we have to learn how to manage our fears. And I got a lot more tips and tricks on that. Maybe in the discussion period we can go through those. But we also covered tools that will help you through change. Change always creates opportunity. If you practice optimistic thinking, that's going to help you get through. And courageous optimistic thinking, which again is acknowledging reality, believing it couldn't be better, and then taking action to make it happen. And building those relationships and growing where you're planted and not being afraid of failure. Well, excuse me. Be afraid of failure and try anyhow and learn.